Are recording. All right, fantastic. Thanks so much for coming, especially right before Prime Day. I know there's going to be a good number of people who are catching this on the replay. So we'll go ahead and just do a little bit of housekeeping. There is a Q&A section, and there's also the chat section. So if you have any questions, go ahead and type them into the chat. If you don't know me, I am Chelsea Cohen. I am the CEO and co-founder of Stockout.com, and we're going to go ahead and share some slides. We're going to talk about some of my favorite subjects, inventory and profitability, and especially in 2022, some of the things that have been going on within Amazon to really start to hurt profitability, and how you can adopt certain tactics to sort of mitigate that. So let me share my screen and we'll get going. All right. Hope you can see my screen now. You should be able to. So this is increasing profitability with inventory optimization. We're also going to be talking about supply chain optimization or profit optimization across the supply chain. All right, like I said, my name is Chelsea Cohen. I've been selling on Amazon since 2014 and really been immersed in Amazon inventory for, this is 3 years, it's at this point over 4 years. I've spoken to 6, 7, and 8-figure sellers in the, and I've written a lot of articles on inventory and supply chain management, been on a ton of podcasts, and our software has over 1,000 users now and is recommended by top masterminds, influencers, agencies, and aggregators. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, the first thing I wanted to cover in terms of inventory management and in terms of just the fundamentals of how to accurately assess your inventory need has to do with stockouts and sales spikes, and really how if you don't look at your numbers correctly, your numbers could lie. And some of the most expensive things about inventory and a lack of inventory control are stocking out, obviously, but then there's something that I like to refer to as the silent killer, which is holding costs. Holding costs, needing to remove inventory. And we're going to talk about some of the fees that Amazon has been increasing or adding that makes these holding costs even more expensive in 2022. And if you don't get a handle on how to mitigate some of these, it's going to be detrimental to your bottom line. So first and foremost, making sure that you have your numbers being processed or being analyzed accurately, because numbers can lie to you. Just getting raw data from Amazon, if it's not processed correctly, can start to trip you up. And so what we like to talk about and what we do within SoStock is something called daily adjusted velocity. And what daily adjusted velocity is, it uses averages. It's not looking at total monthly sales. So in that regard, if, for example, you're looking at doing a projection for the Christmas season, if you just take the total sales from, say, mid-October to end of December, and you say, okay, well, I sold, 80,000 units during that period of time, I'm going to order that amount for the next period of time. Well, what if you stocked out? Or what if you had a huge sales day because your product was mentioned on a morning news segment and had a bunch of unexpected sales? Those issues could cause you to overorder or to underorder. So daily adjusted velocity is important. It's looking at how much do you sell of each product on a daily basis, and it's adjusted to remove some of those anomalies. So if you've got that sales spike, you want to remove that sales spike if it's not going to happen again. If you had a stock out, your average is going to be completely thrown off if you did not adjust for it. So if you're looking at a 30-day average and you stocked out for 5 of those days, if you're not adjusting that average, it's going to cause problems. Deep discounts would be another factor. If you did a deep discount campaign, that might factor into your wanting to analyze for your adjusted velocity. So that is the foundation. That's what we also refer to as true velocity. I'm going to just go into a little bit of a case study to talk about how in reality numbers can lie. How does this look, and how does it affect your forecasting? There was a 7-figure seller in the wholesale space that we were working with. He came into the Stock software, and he had been having trouble with his other software. He was using another software that was working okay for a number of his SKUs, but he was continually stocking out in his best sellers. So he created a spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet helped to improve the accuracy, but he was still stocking out. So it wasn't exactly accurate. And both of these systems were letting him down to some degree. When he came into Stock, he looked at the numbers for these particular products and found that they were extremely high, especially compared to what he was getting from his other methods. And it looked something like this. The true velocity, when you looked at the actual data, was that he was selling 15 units a day. The competing software was saying he was selling 8 units a day. His custom spreadsheet said 10 units a day, and Stocked was able to find that it was 15 units a day. So this is where you get into the point of numbers actually lying to you. Numbers can lie when they're not analyzed properly, and every single one of these instances is pulling the information directly from Amazon. So you would figure that if it's coming directly from Amazon, it's going to be accurate. And here's how processing data incorrectly, especially when it comes to a stock out or a sales spike, can really start to trip you up. And you're going to under order if you don't factor these things in. Here's the 2 things that should be looked at. And only one of these things is being looked at by a lot of systems. And that's something that we found in building out Stocked. And that's something that when I went to look for a tool before we even went on this journey to build Stock, a lot of these stock out calculations were inaccurate. So the first question is, if you're doing FBA, did you have stock or not? If you didn't have stock, you're obviously not going to have a live listing, and you're not going to be selling. So that's the first thing that needs to be considered. And that's data that can be pulled historically from Amazon's API. It's not something that has been available to sellers to download as a report, but it's something that you can get through the API. And if you don't have API pulls, if you're not pulling directly from Amazon's API, or you're not using a software that does that, you can track it in a stockout log. And I'll talk a little bit about stockout log and one of the resources that we have for tracking some of those things, which is a DIY inventory spreadsheet. All right, the other thing that needs to be looked at is, was there an unusual interruption to your normal sales velocity? So that could be a lower sales day before you go out of stock, a lower sales day when you come back into stock, or Amazon finding 1 or 2 units to sell during a stock out if your listing is still live during a stock out. And then you have sales interruptions caused by listing suspensions. That also is an anomaly or an unusual interruption to your normal sales velocity. If you are not analyzing this correctly, and like I said, many stock out calculations are only looking for number 1. They're only looking for, did you have stock? And so what that does is that starts to count some of these lower sales days into your average. So we've got the competing software on the left, and we've got the Stock calculation on the right, and you really start to see how this data should be analyzed. So if you're doing 100 units a day, and then you do 23 units right before you stock out, that should be factored as a stock out. That should not be counted as in your average, because if you put that number in your average, it's going to throw all of your numbers off. So that would be removed. And then you would have stock out days, and then that one day that Amazon found a random unit, and that should be counted as a stock out day as well. That should not be counted as an in-stock day. But a lot of these systems are counting it as an in-stock day simply because there was a sale and there was inventory that was picked up. Then lastly, coming back into stock, you've got that day where you sold 13, right? As you came back in and your inventory was checked in, that should be an out of stock day. If you don't process it correctly, what we're looking at is really 23 in stock days. We would get to the actual true velocity, which would be 100 units a day. If you factor these incorrectly, like we see on the left, you are going to get an average, a 30-day average of 90 units a day. So you're 10 units off every day. And if you're ordering 3 months worth of inventory, that could be a significant under ordering and you could end up stocking out. The same thing, of course, can happen if you've got that huge sales day and you order much more than you should have ordered. And then you have additional holding costs because you're over ordering. So that is first and foremost the foundation of inventory management, is being able to understand that your numbers are accurate and that you're not over ordering or under ordering, because your profit is very much tied to stocking out or your holding costs. Moving on, I wanted to talk about, we're going to be getting into some of these fees and then into some of the ways from inventory and supply chain that you can mitigate the profit margin creep, or the profit margin erosion, as we call it. I like to talk about a concept that is little hinges move big doors. This concept is really about how little tiny changes can create a large effect. And when you think about it, if you could save, let's say 15 to 20 cents on every single unit across your catalog, the amount of money that would save many businesses is very, very significant. If you could avoid stocking out, if you could avoid paying as much for shipping, all of these things have to do with, they're just little tiny changes, but they could create a huge effect. So that's something that I really liked to consider. And then the opposite of that was actually the reason that I started So Stocked, was death by paper cuts. I was looking at my profit and loss statement and feeling like I should be keeping more money, and that the fees were piling up, and that every little fee was piling up to really affect our profit. And I wanted to figure out how to get a handle on that. And the first and obvious choice was to go for inventory. I had stocked out for a month and then another week during that time period within that year. And so I really felt, well, if I can't control Amazon's fees and I can't control the pricing within my market in terms of my competitors lowering their price, there is something I can control, is getting better at inventory so I don't stock out. And that was how So Stocked was born. So one of the things in terms of recovering profit, one of the things that really should be focused on, especially because of some of the fees that Amazon is really pushing out, and we'll talk about those, is focusing on the size of your product and the size of your packaging, and the way that you optimize this really does matter. When you have the unit packaging of every single product, the size of it is going to dictate how much you're paying in FBA fees, fulfillment fees, storage. And then you have the new dimensional weight factor, which you probably know about, but I'm going to get into a little bit of details about what that is and why it can be so detrimental, especially to businesses that have large size products. Then you have carton packaging. Of course, you have handling fees, carton handling fees with carton packaging, labeling and handling, carton pull fees, then palletizing. Of course, you have storage fees, but you also have handling fees. If you have to palletize that, if you pull out all the inventory from a container and it's not on pallets, usually it has to be put on pallets and shipped on pallets. Then you have containers, of course, shipping fees when you have containers, and that's not something that you generally are able to control. But we're going to talk a little bit about how you can sort of mitigate the costs of the impact of the container shipping costs on your bottom line. All right, let's go ahead and really clarify dimensional weight and what Amazon has done. This is something that came out earlier in the year, at the beginning of the year. And it's something that many shipping companies already do for their ground shipping. They FedEx does it, UPS does it. Amazon has never really done it before. They've used a different process and now they're implementing it. And dimensional weight fees is essentially looking at both your space and the weight of a product. How much space does it take up and how much does it actually weigh? Because when you have a truck, it can only hold a certain amount of weight and it can only hold a certain amount in terms of space. So it has to weigh both of those things when estimating how much to charge you. So that is what dimensional weight is really all about. And there's actually a really easy formula. It's looking at your unit weight, your unit length, your unit width, and your unit height, and then dividing that by the number 139. That's called a dim divisor. And it's just the common number that they use to do this calculation. So we want to go ahead and talk about how does this actually work in reality. Let's take the example of queen pillows, and this is an example I pulled off of Amazon. So it's a 2-pack of queen pillows, and the dimensions of this product are 28 inches by 20 by 5, and the actual weight is 6 pounds. It's rounded up because Amazon rounds up everything, so rounded up to 6 pounds. When you do that dimensional weight calculation, that 6-pound product now becomes shipping weight of 21 pounds. It's now billed as if it's 21 pounds. So you can see that it can be extremely significant. I have a friend who sells pillows and the fees went up just by the changing of this structure pretty much overnight. Their fulfillment fees went up by 94%. So this can have a significant impact on your business. And so we'll get a little bit into how can you actually offset this? What are the things that you can do to make your business more profitable by kind of reassessing how to handle your packaging, your shipping, and that type of thing. First, I want to get into how did Amazon actually utilize dimensional weight fees? Most people are aware that FBA fulfillment fees use dimensional weight now. First and foremost, Amazon increased their fees by an average of 21 cents per unit. So that's an increase that we're usually used to, but then you have beyond that increase, now you have dimensional weight stacked onto that. So your fees increased, and then you may be falling in a higher tier than you used to be falling into, just based on dimensional weight. Some of the other changes that people aren't always aware of are that remote fulfillment fees and removal fees, not only did they increase significantly, but they also use dimensional weight. So removal fees, this one down here on the bottom, have increased by almost 50%. And then, of course, dimensional weight fees. This is significant because at the same time as they're making products less profitable, they're making it more expensive for you to actually pull that inventory. The other thing that they are doing is that they are setting up automatic removals as well. So they're removing more inventory more automatically. Then we have the remote fulfillment fees. So this is the North America remote fulfillment system, right? This is if you're selling in the US and you're holding inventory in the US, you can store in the US and then sell it on the Canada marketplace and the Mexico marketplace, and your inventory can be shipped from the US into those countries. The rates for this have increased by 60%, by about 60%, and included dimensional weight fees. So that's something to look at. Even if it's been profitable for you before and you're using remote fulfillment, it may not be profitable and you may want to go ahead and adjust your pricing accordingly. Beyond that, if you're not using remote fulfillment, you need to actually, within the next few months, opt out because they're starting to auto enroll people in this system. They're starting to insist that you sell your product there. So instead of having to opt into the program, you have to opt out of it. So that's something to know. Run your numbers, make sure that all of this makes sense so that you can better control your bottom line. All right, I wanted to talk, so really quick, just as a recap, I call it the Amazon fee stack, right? We have, of course, the FBA fulfillment fees have gone up. They're using dimensional weight fees. We have something called the fuel and inflation surcharge. This is a new one, 5% on top of your fulfillment fees. So your fulfillment fees and then 5% of your fulfillment fees are added on top. So that's another significant fee that's been applied. Removal fees have gone up, like we talked about, remote fulfillment fees, and then something called aged inventory. This means that at 9 months, your inventory is going to start getting charged long-term, aged inventory, right? Aged inventory, you're going to be charged $1.50 per cubic foot every month from month 9, 10, 11. And then on the 12th month, we still have what's called long-term storage, which you're probably familiar with. And long-term storage is significant in that you're now paying $6.90 per cubic foot. So not only do you have to watch for that 12-month mark, now you have to watch for a 9-month mark. And these are just ways for Amazon to encourage you to continue to sell your inventory. So we have some systems for being able to help to monitor this, because there are ways that you can work your inventory team and your marketing team and coordinate them to help to mitigate a lot of these fees. Like I call them, like we said, silent killers. The removal fees, the aged inventory fees, the storage fees, these are all the silent killers. Like, we have to pay the fulfillment fees and the fuel and inflation surcharge fees, but the other fees we don't necessarily have to pay unless we don't manage things properly. All right, now we're going to get back to talking about how to affect change in terms of your size. If you have to pay these fees, how can you reduce the fees? First and foremost, you look at your packaging, because if you can reduce your packaging and you can fall into a lower size tier, then you can reduce your fees on every single unit that you sell. So if you're selling, let's say, this beauty product, can you put the same amount of product in a smaller container? Can you vacuum seal? If you had, let's say, the pillow, could you vacuum seal the pillow? Is that possible? How can you, if you have silicone, could you fold the product differently? Could you disassemble the product that you have instead of having it be fully assembled? Is there a way to disassemble it and have it be assembled by the customer without really impacting the customer experience too heavily? We're going to talk about a real-world example of the difference that can be made in reducing your product packaging. These are 2 competing products, real examples pulled from Amazon. One falls under large standard size in terms of their dimensions and comes in at 3 pounds. The shipping weight was 3 pounds before 2022. That's the actual weight. And then now with dimensional weight, it's being charged at 12 pounds. Pretty significant change, but product 2 is worse. This is falling in small oversize, and they're both queen size 2-packs. The product was 6 pounds. Now it's 21 pounds. So really it looks like the product on the left is vacuum packing and the product on the right is not. So that's where we get into really the cost difference. And so there's actually a ripple effect that occurs when you get into really bringing down the sizing, right? If I had this product on the right and I were able to squeeze it into, the same size as the product on the left, that would be a significant savings. So as you look at that, you look at the fulfillment fees, even the removal fees and the storage fees are going to be significantly reduced. But then we get into this trickle down effect. We get into packaging. And when you have your packaging reduced, you can actually put more units in every carton and more units on every pallet. So that's kind of the first step, is can I reduce my packaging? And then how many units can I get into every carton? And it really comes down to optimizing. Am I really optimizing my carton configuration, my pallet configuration? And the only way to really do that in a smart way is to take your unit dimensions and your pallet dimensions and work it backwards to figure out how many units can I get in each carton and still get as many units on that pallet as possible. You have 48 inches on the long side of this pallet, and yet with Amazon, the carton can be 25 inches long. So if we have two cartons that are 25 inches long and you put them side by side, that's 50 inches. That's not going to fit on the long side of a pallet, let alone the short side, which is 40 inches. You're only going to be able to fit one box on there. It's not going to fit otherwise. So you're really reducing the amount of space you're able to use. So if I were to shorten that to 24 inches, I could get two on this long side. And so you want to make sure that your box is configured so you can fit as many cartons on that pallet. And we've had people, we actually have a tool. It's called the Master Carton Calculator, or the Carton Pallet Calculator. If you go to sostock.com/tools, it's a free tool, and you can use the tool to be able to figure out the best way to build out that carton, that pallet. And we've been able to see that some people have used the calculator and they're using less than 50% of the amount of space that they should be using or that they could be using. So they're not, it's called volume usage. They're not using all that space. There's a specific amount of volume that you can fit. And if your boxes aren't shaped the right way and you're not stacking them the right way, you're going to lose out on a lot of money and you're paying more. If you're using 50% of the pallet, you've got twice the amount of pallets that you actually could have. Or if you've got cartons that are smaller than they need to be, you've got twice as many cartons. And so every time those cartons get handled and those pallets get handled, you're paying a lot more than you should be. Here's a little bit of an example of some real data that was provided from a seller on their actual product. And so what the tool is going to do, it's going to tell you how you should be configuring. It's going to give you a pack list and also a savings report. So this particular product, because it was so poorly configured, and usually we have our supplier figure that out, and they don't figure it out based on any data except for usually what fits and what box they can most conveniently get for a reduced price. So what you want to do is you put your numbers in there, and then in this particular example, and this is an extreme example, but it's a real example, and I'm just giving it to you to show you how much something can be not properly optimized. Maybe you put your data in there and you produce 10 cents a unit, 20 cents a unit. It's still can be a significant savings as you continue to scale up. So this is 93 cents per unit that is being saved simply by reconfiguring the current carton and pallet optimization, right? Reducing the total number of cartons, reducing the total number of pallets, and then you've got the final savings per order. The savings is almost $2,000 per order that is being saved simply by reconfiguring the current package, the current packing, right? And then you think of, if I reduce my packaging size, I could fit more units per carton as well. And so you're saving on the fees that Amazon's charging you. You're able to save on fees from your 3PL, from the shipping perspective. And then we get into our containers. And if you have to pay, let's say $10,000 per container, and we used to pay $2,000, now we're paying $10,000 or more. If we have to pay that much and we can't control how much we're having to pay, we want to at least fit as many units per container as possible. If we can fit 30% more units, that means that our fees, that $10,000 is spread across more units. So each unit becomes less and your cost per unit becomes less. Your landed cost per unit becomes less. There is a free tool to help do that. It's called peertopeer.com/load calc. And you can see that right here, peertopeer.com/load calc. And it helps you to figure out exactly how to build your container. It creates a container map. So it does container mapping. It says your product, these should go here, these products should go here, and these should go here. You give that to the person who is packing your container, the company that is helping to assist with that. They'll be able to do that to get as much into that container as possible. But on the other side, when that container gets to your 3PL, you're able to give that to that 3PL. They can use that and they can be more strategic and organized with how they unpack that and can reduce the amount of labor time, because usually these places charge per hour for unpacking. And so I have a friend who has a 3PL, and he has said that sometimes receiving that container map and that container being packed properly has reduced the amount of time for unloading by half. So that's cutting that labor fee in half for you. All right, I wanted to go over, because we went over all of this, if you were to take the 2 pillow products and truly optimize each of those pillow products without reducing the packaging, just by running it through, a carton pallet calculator, and running it through this peertopeer.com/load calc, this container calculator, what would be the potential difference in savings between the vacuum sealed and the non-vacuum sealed? And we can start to kind of understand the significant impact that can be had all across the line. So you have product 1 and you have product 2. You see already the fulfillment fees are about twice as much as for the second product than the first product. And it kind of continues along the way. Storage twice as much, container shipping twice as much almost, receiving is the same, palletizing. Box forwarding is the only one that is the same in this scenario. But when you add the total fees for the product 1, this is before cost of goods and PPC and all of that, $14.40 versus $26.10. That's a difference of $11.70. This product pretty much on the right becomes this no longer becomes profitable for this particular seller. But if you could condense it into that same vacuum sealed dimension as the other product, you could recover $11.70 per unit. Looking at the amount of inventory that is being moved on a monthly basis for this product, this is pulled from Amazon using Jungle Scout. Monthly sales, 2,200 units. Savings per month at $11.70 would be over $25,000 for just this product. Savings per year over $300,000. And then if you were to exit at a 5x multiple, having recovered this money a year before you went to exit, you would be looking at an extra $1.5 million. When you optimize, you're able to recover that profit. And not only is it going to affect how well you can scale and how much money you put in your pocket at the end of the year, but also if you are planning on selling your business, it's increasing the value of your business significantly. And again, that's only this one product. If you did this across your entire catalog, that can have just a significant difference. And when you have Amazon's fees really stacking up, you need to find a way to offset those fees, right? And offsetting them, I think, can definitely come from the supply chain side of your business if you really start to understand how that side of the business works. And it's something that not a lot of people are looking at. And so if you've got competitors that are really starting to feel the margin crunch and starting to have to raise their prices, but you're able to keep your prices steady because you've recovered some of that profit over on your supply chain, that gives you sort of a competitive advantage over your competitors. So let's look at kind of the annual profit savings. Let's just a scenario. If we were able to reduce our packaging and increase our unit optimization by $20,000 annually. Carton optimization, let's say $40,000, and this is on, let's say on a large catalog. Pallet optimization, $15,000. Also, really keeping track of your inventory and avoiding expensive air freight. Maybe you could save $50,000 by sending things by ocean instead of air. And then avoiding stockouts, $70,000. And that's not unrealistic. We have some accounts we look at and analyze lost sales due to stockouts in SoStock, and have had people who've lost $130,000, $180,000 just on stockouts alone within their catalog. So being able to control all these aspects of your business, even though marketing is something that is extremely important and a lot of people focus on it, when you start to get into scale and when you are trying to improve your profit, the people that really start to do well are the people that pay attention to the operations side of the business. And so that's why I'm so passionate about the operations, the inventory, the cash flow, and the profit side of the business, because even though we could do the marketing side really well, we were still in our business having a hard time because it was this side that was not really running smoothly, right? And all of the marketing efforts really become injured by the fact that you have stockouts, or by the fact that you don't have money to purchase your next inventory order because you stocked out, or because you had spent a bunch of money on your air freight. So when you get into the exit portion and you sell at a 5x multiple, all of that increases significantly. So maybe you saved $200,000 in your annual profit, you got an annual profit increase, and then that turns into, at a 5x multiple, almost $1 million that you're able to save, that you're able to put back in your pocket. And these tactics, these sizing and these packaging strategies are all being utilized by the aggregators who are buying your software. Buying your companies, your brands. They are putting that money back in their pocket, and they're adding instant equity because you didn't take the time before you sold to do that. So this is something that, especially if you're looking to sell within the next, let's say, 18 months, to start making these changes so you can start recovering and have a larger exit. All right, here are some valuable tools. We mentioned sostock.com/tools. We have the Master Carton Calculator. We have an FBA calculator. And we have some other tools there, all free. Then we have the OnPallet. OnPallet.com is, it's not a carton pallet optimizer, but it is a pallet optimizer. So if you're not changing your carton, it will help you to figure out the best configuration. It's not going to give you anything on cost savings, but it will give you that. Then you have Container, right? The peertopeer.com/loadcalc. Whoops. Let's go into this final piece. So this final piece is how to get organized and how to make sure that as much as possible you can avoid stockouts and you can avoid overstocking. And really it has to do with something I call inventory-minded marketing. Inventory-minded marketing came about because I was talking to a lot of sellers, and over again in working with sellers, I found that one of the general themes was that their inventory team and their marketing team were not coordinated. And sometimes they were a husband and wife team and they were still not coordinated. So the idea came about that first and foremost, the marketing team needs to give data to the inventory team. You need to be able to see if you're actually going to be able to do that particular marketing campaign. And this isn't just beginners. I've seen 8-figure sellers make this mistake as well. Had an 8-figure seller who ran a coupon discount campaign for Mother's Day and then was stocking out the next month. And that could have been prevented by simply seeing if an increase in sales could be supported by the inventory. The cost of stocking out is extremely expensive. We know that you lose revenue. We know that you may have re-ranking costs and that you may have air freight costs. But the piece that isn't really understood or looked at is the fact that you did a coupon discount, so you reduced your price, or you did a PPC campaign and you spent a lot of ad spend, and that money didn't have to be spent because you could have made full price sales organically and not reduced the profit for those particular products. Then if you're using a PPC agency and they stocked you out, you also have the added cost of paying a PPC agency to stock you out. So those are the before stock out costs as well. So the first and foremost, you need to have marketing provide a marketing plan to inventory. The second piece of that is that inventory needs to provide reports to marketing to help to inform that plan. And those reports actually should be baked into the marketing plan. So we're going to go over really quickly some of these reports and how marketing should be utilizing these reports. So first is this is the marketing plan. This is something I call the inventory-minded marketing planner. This is one of the things that can be found at sostock.com/tools, that link that we talked about. And this essentially allows you to map out what velocity is most important to look at. Am I looking at last year's sales because I'm trying to predict a seasonal order? Am I looking at 30, 60, 90-day average? Is this a new product that I launched? I need to figure out what the plug in a manual velocity to estimate what I think I should be start selling. Figure that part out. And then do I need to add a trend? Am I looking at this quarter versus last quarter, this year versus last year? Was there growth? And then am I going to force some growth? Let's say with a PPC campaign, I'm going to grow this product by 10%. The ad campaign that I'm running will increase sales by 10% over what it is now. Then you have lightning deals or other sales events. So this could be an email campaign, influencer campaign. What you would do is pick a date range, a day or a week or whatever it is, and how many units you expect to move in that period of time. Because this will get added and this will influence the inventory, the speed at which the inventory sells through, and will also influence the orders that are placed or the transfers that are placed. Then you have seasonal spikes. So this is a date range, let's say summer, and the percentage increase over what the sales are right now. So you say every summer my sales increase by 50%, for example. And so this data is compiled from the marketing team and given to the inventory team, and the inventory team should be able to plug this in and track this. All right, let's get into the reports that inventory should be giving to the marketing team. The reports that should be given, we start with the Stockout risk report, and it sounds like exactly what it is, which is what products are at risk of stocking out, what's that date that they may be stocking out, and how many days do we think they're going to be stocked out. This report can become valuable because some of these things can be avoided. Some of these stockouts can be avoided. Let's say you turn off an aggressive ad campaign that's not very profitable. That helps to reduce the amount of money that you would be spending, would help to increase the profit and maybe, avoid that stockout. If it's an 8-day stockout, a 3-day stockout, it's likely that you could avoid that stockout. So SoStock has a stockout risk report, and we have a lot of reports that you can use to customize, right? You can customize the reports to reflect exactly what your business data is and what you need to look at. If you don't have SoStock or another system that does this for you, you can do a calculation, which is what's your total inventory? What is your daily adjusted velocity? You divide your daily adjusted velocity into your total inventory. That's going to give you your total days of remaining stock. And then you'll be able to see at what date will I stock out if I don't place a new order. All right, then we have the slow sellers report. The slow sellers report is going to use a minimum and a maximum range. Let's say that range is between 5 and 20 sales a day. And so you look at it and you say, this product is not doing well. It's not, a complete dud, but it's not doing well, and it could become a problem. I want to move it into a viable range. I want to move it above 20 units a day. And so what you would want to do is send this report to your marketing team to ramp up sales. These become, hey, this is a red flag. We need to ramp up sales with this particular product. So that's what this report would be used for. And if you don't keep an eye on these and you don't get these boosted up, they could fall into the other report, which is the liquidation report. So instead of a minimum and a maximum, instead of a range, you just have a minimum. So if we said anything between 5 and 20 sales a day is a slow seller, let's say anything below 5 sales should be liquidated. These are the products that they're going to cost you. They're going to be what contributes significantly, possibly, to your holding costs and to your profit margin decreasing. So yes, that's a minimum only. And this report should be sent to the marketing team, and they should devise a plan to sell through this inventory as quickly as possible, right? Flash sales or dropping the price, whatever they have to do. Let's try to move that inventory. Let's try to move it at a profit, or at least not at a loss, but let's try to move it so that we can avoid those expensive holding costs, right? We used to say, so we could boost our restock limits and clear some space, but restock limits hasn't been too much of a problem. I don't foresee it being too much of a problem. There's a lot of reasons for that. A lot have to do with Amazon really overbuilt. But yeah, I don't see restock limits coming back, at least not for the US. Then you have, lastly, the Overstock Report. There are products from those other lists, the liquidation and the slow sellers, that they're kind of often on this Overstock Report list, but you can also find best sellers here. And so what you're looking at is you're looking at your maximum days of supply. And in this case, we're talking about FBA. You can do an Overstock Report for all of your inventory in total at your 3PL as well as FBA. We're just talking about FBA here right now. So your total days of remaining stock, let's say anything over 90 days, this is something that I consider overstock. This report would be used to isolate that excess inventory, and you want the marketing team to put together a plan for how to move some of this, and to have them start thinking of this overstocked inventory as an asset, right? It can become a liability because it's going to be incurring holding fees if you don't move that inventory, but it can become an asset if you're trying to rank for a keyword that you would like to rank for, and you have an extra, let's say 25 days of supply above what you consider a good range. You can say, okay, let's use some of this inventory and let's really start ranking for this particular keyword. Remember that once you start ranking for that, your sales are going to go up. So you do want to plan accordingly and keep an eye to make sure that you're not going to run out of stock as well, that you're placing those orders. But it is a strategy. And the best case scenario is when you have a product that shows up on the Overstock Report, and it also shows up on your slow seller report, because you're trying to get that slow seller to increase its velocity, and you can use some of that excess inventory to help you to do that by increasing ranking, right? So that's something that your marketing team should also know, is if I find a product on those two reports, that's a great sign that I can do something with this. So then, of course, they fold that into their marketing plan, and they send their marketing plan back to inventory, and it's kind of a cyclical thing, right? Inventory and marketing should be working together at all times, and they should both proactively be providing data to each other. All right, that is really all I have. Let me know if you have any questions. Type them in the chat if you do. I hope that this is a very successful and fruitful 2022 for you. Really having attention to detail and really knowing what is going on within your supply chain and knowing what is going on between your inventory and your marketing teams is how you're going to be really successful in 2022. Hope you guys all have a great Prime Day. It's coming up. It's less than a week away. So have a fantastic Prime Day. And then if you have questions about SoStock, let's go ahead and just really kind of jump into it. If you're not a SoStock user, we are the first fully customizable Amazon inventory management software. And we also factored restock limits in. That's not so much an issue anymore, but we allow you to put your marketing plans into your inventory plans and produce those marketing focused reports for you. It's also got a PO system. We've got over 1,000 happy customers. We do free data migration, which means if you've got data that you need help putting into the system and you don't have time to put into the system, we can help do that. We have a team that helps to do that. And then we have one-on-one onboarding calls. So you'll talk to someone directly on the phone on a video call about your particular account, your particular business, how to set everything up, make sure that you know how to use the software. If you are not the one doing it, we will also train your team and work directly with your team to help you set up and run and maintain your particular account. All right, that's all I have for you today. If you have any questions, reach out to us. You can reach me at sostock.com/connect. There's also a link to the demo. There's also a link to all the tools that I mentioned. And if you go to sostock.com, there is a 30-day free trial. Go ahead and give it a try. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions or reach out to us if you think of anything else in the meantime. All right, thank you guys so much. And yeah, hope you have a great Prime Day.